Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Eastern Consolidated, M&T Bank, Sterling National Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Customers Bank, Aerial Property Advisors, Perfect Building Maintenance. Additional funding has been provided by AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, AmTrust Title Insurance Company, AVR Realty Company, Avison Young, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Mortgage Lending, Citizens Bank, Cohen Equities, Colliers International NYC, Collins Building Services, Connect One Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Dime Community Bank, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Genova Burns, Handro Properties, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investments, Hodges Ward Elliott Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Madison Realty Capital, Matone Group, Mercantile Bank, New Banks, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Polsonelli, Rosewood Realty Services, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Knackle Group at Cushman & Wakefield, Maring Goff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Group, and these friends.
New Jersey? Michigan? Variety of places over there. Princeton? Bambergers? Bakeries? Putting cookies away? Daycare?
Yeah.
Ruth Tilden Scholar? Nah, I'm going to work for a law firm. Greater New York Healthcare Hospital Association? And Healthfirst?
Yeah.
Who is its eminent attorney? Patricia Wang, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
So tell me about your parents. I mean, your father came from nothing. He was an orphan.
Yeah.
He lived on a mud floor with
Yeah.
chickens. What?
Yeah. My father was from a village in Anhui province, which is north of the Yangtze River, sort of in a very rural area. He lost both of his parents when he was young and was literally raised by the village. He studied really hard. I mean, this is really one of those stories. He studied, he tested into, he had a grandparent who really believed in him. He took a series of tests and was admitted into a middle school in Nanking, up the river, went there to live, and that changed his life.
Right, and you said to me that was like the MIT of China.
Eventually, he went to Zhejiang University, Chekiang University, which was like the MIT of China. He was a chemical engineer.
And then how does he end up at the University of Michigan?
Yeah, he came to the University of Michigan in 1948 as a UN scholar. I guess that's a program that existed then.
So let's talk a little bit about Mom.
Yeah.
Tell me about your mom's side. They were rice merchants?
My grandfather was a rice merchant. They were from Shanghai. She came from a family of 9 children, 8 girls, 1 boy. Originally started, I think, with 13 siblings, and 9 made it to adulthood. So she grew up in Shanghai, which is much more cosmopolitan environment back then, even today, than where my dad came from. She was very, very spunky. She always wanted to see the world. And she sort of just, was very, very active, very, very smart, very bright lady. And in about 1948, when the communists were kind of just about to come into Shanghai. All the foreign businesses were packing up to leave. And she had some English, so she was going around as kind of a gopher, helping them, do this, that, or the other. And in the course of this one day, she heard a couple of American secretaries talking about the fact that J.G. White was relocating to Taipei, Taiwan, and that they had an extra seat on the plane because they were looking for a secretary or somebody to go with them, and applications the following morning. So my mom, the following morning, showed up. She was the first online. I think she got there very, very early. And her spunkiness is sort of evidenced in the fact that this American gal apparently came later. My mom got the job, by the way. And this American gal said to her, "You took my job. You heard me talking about this job." And without skipping a beat, my mom said, "I didn't take anything from you. You're an American. You can go anywhere you want. And you could have gotten up an hour earlier this morning to be first online."
Right, so she gets the job. She works for this Mr. Pearson.
George Kingdom Parsons. Yes.
And Mr. Parsons, subsequently, during the period of time afterwards, is her sponsor to come to America.
Yes.
And he put up a bond, and he really went out of his way.
Yes.
And then also later on, when he came to America, something in Yonkers over there.
Yes, they were our godparents.
Let's talk about your mother and your father,
Yeah.
how they met, because it was like a mail order bride.
No, you can't say it like that. They were introduced.
They were introduced.
This was not arranged. This was introduced.
Oh, this was an introduction.
Yes, and my mother was very adamant on that point. My dad came to Ann Arbor, and one of his classmates there was the husband of my mother's eldest sister. So my mother was number 7, and this was actually number 2, Auntie Grace, but they considered her to be number 1. So my uncle, we called him S.Y., was in Michigan with my dad. Auntie Grace was back in Shanghai with my mom. Uncle S.Y. wrote to my mother and said, "I think I have found a suitable husband for you." And so they corresponded through the mail, and I asked my mother about this at one point. I said, "So you were arranged?" She said, No, not arranged, introduced. We were introduced. This was modern," and all of the rest. And I'll tell you something, Michael. When I was growing up, my parents used to tell us all kinds of stories about how they knew each other in Shanghai, and they went to parties together. And so we said, "That's great." It wasn't until I went to Shanghai in 1982 and met my aunts, my mother's sisters, that they said, "Oh, no, they never met each other. This is the real story."
So you got the truth.
I got the truth, yeah.
So now, later on, after Michigan, Mom comes because the streets are paved with gold.
Yes.
To America, and they get married. We have that nice picture. The University of Chicago.
Chapel, yeah.
Chapel Hill, a chapel where they get married.
Yeah.
And then your dad gets a degree.
He received his master's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Michigan. He was then enrolled in a PhD program at the University of Illinois at Chicago Circle, and my mom got pregnant. So they moved east to New Jersey, first to New York for a little while, then to New Jersey. My sister and I were both born in Jersey City.
So you're born in Jersey City. As you were saying to me at that time, there weren't that many Chinese.
Not at all.
In Jersey City. So then you moved to Fairlawn.
Yeah.
The Fairlawn, New Jersey. Also a community that had everything but Chinese.
Yes.
And we have pictures of you having a birthday cake and other things. But you said your mother was really an energetic individual, and your mother would do clothing or piecemeal work in the house?
She made all of our clothing, all of the curtains, all of the bedspreads. She was extremely handy. And, neither of my parents really had anything. My dad came here expecting to go back home. He was from the countryside. My mother came here. She went to Taiwan with a suitcase, telling her parents, "I'm leaving for my adventure and I'll come back home," and she never saw them again. So they really came here with nothing. And like a lot of immigrants, they said, this town has good schools. My dad's place of work was within walking distance.
Right, he worked for Borden.
Yeah, he walked, and So we moved there.
Now, you said to me, you know, as many immigrants, you know, certain people had cousins clubs going back many, many years ago. In a way, your parents met people who had and they had Sunday dinner together.
Yes, yes. There soon developed a group. We used to call it the Chinese Community Club, and it was a lot of families that were similar to my parents who came over in that wave in the late 40s and early 50s, sort of in connection with some of the political upheaval in China at the time, and they found each other. So we used to see those people all the time, and they were our aunties and uncles and, you know, our friends, and we spent a fair amount of time with them.
Now, when you said when we were getting together, you lived in Fairlawn. It was a nice community, a bedroom community. You had a small house. You had the park. You had your own park. But daycare. What was the daycare job?
Oh, so that was my first job. My first job when I was 13 years old. I got a job in the church daycare center, taking care of little children. And that was, my mother was very insistent that we all, you know, get a good taste of work early so that we would be ingrained with that.
So after
ethic.
after the daycare, how did you get the job at the kosher, the Jewish bakery? It wasn't kosher, but it was a Jewish bakery where your job was with the cookies?
Yes. So this was actually, I think it was kosher.
Oh.
Yeah. But the bakers were Jews from Hungary and Austria, and they made the most delicious, you know, all kinds of baked things, sponge cakes and hamantaschen and bow ties and special things for the Jewish holidays. And one of my jobs, this was in junior high school, I guess. I used to ride my bicycle there. One of my jobs was to take the freshly baked cookies and put them onto the display trays. And because I had grown up in a house that didn't really eat those kinds of things.
Now, was it $1.65 or $1.35 an hour?
Oh, gosh. I think it was even less than that. I don't
So that was one job. And then you said to me when you were still going to high school, Mom found, I don't know how she found Bamberger's in Paramus Park.
Yeah. Well, my mom was working there. So she went back to work when my brother was, I think, in kindergarten. And she was a salesperson there. She worked at night. She became a floor manager. And so when we were old enough, we all got jobs in Bamberger's. My sister did, I did, my brother did something different, but, you know, we got these little sales jobs.
You were in the wig department, did you say?
There was
housewares, wigs.
Wigs, I counted money, I was in the treasury, you know, collecting cash at the end of the day because people didn't use credit cards very much back then, it was all cash. I was in the gift wrapping department, so I'm like really good at wrapping a present.
You know how much limited Scotch tape to use?
Yes. I loved wrapping. I was in the makeup department. I did everything that they asked me to do.
So you graduated high school, and you said to me that your sister had been in Princeton. And at that time, what happened? It was something with a lobster.
Oh, yeah. So back then, you didn't go visit colleges. You just looked in the book and, you know, sort of picked. My sister was at Princeton. My parents showed remarkable restraint in not pushing us in one direction or another. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go there. I wasn't sure really what college was supposed to be about.
Right. You didn't even know what you wanted to do.
Didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't know really anything about college. And I went to visit her one weekend, and it was a beautiful spring day. Princeton is a beautiful campus, and they happened to have this lobster dinner. It was one of the student activities, and I said, I've got to come here.
So you're at Princeton, and you said to me when you were at Princeton, it was like me, since I'm a pretty good typist, the way that you earned additional revenue was you worked for Kodak doing typing.
Yes, those were my summer jobs. I worked in the typing pool, and in school, you know, I made all of my extra money flipping hamburgers and typing.
Where were you flipping the hamburgers?
There was a student-run food service, so I worked reunions, I worked all of the football games, It was all hot dogs, hamburgers, things like that.
So you graduated Princeton what year?
1976.
So it's 1976. You didn't have any idea that you were going to become an attorney, right?
I did not.
So what happens in 1976?
In 1976, I had met my future first husband-to-be, Philip Woodruff, and we went to Taiwan together. He was a student of Chinese history, and he was going there to do research or something like that. And I went with him, and I found odd jobs teaching English. We lived with a Taiwanese family in exchange for doing conversational English lessons with them. So I was young and straight out of college, and you could not go to China yet. I had a great desire to really learn more about China. In college, I majored in history and East Asian studies. I wrote my thesis on 20th century China. I really was curious about it.
So how long are you in Taiwan?
1 year.
And then you come back.
Then we came back. We went to Chicago because Philip was a student at the University of Chicago, and I got a series of jobs there, one of which was with an organization called the U.S.-China People's Friendship Association, which I think was listed at one time as a suspected communist front organization. But it was before China opened up, so people who wanted to kind of have interaction with and promote interaction with mainland, in addition to Taiwan, and really learn about that big country, which was sort of a secret and kind of masked and cloaked to most Americans. I worked for that organization, trying to promote teaching in the elementary schools about the big China.
What comes next?
Next, thanks to Philip, I was thinking about applying to grad school. I had really always thought about teaching as a career, and he strongly encouraged me to think about going to law school. He said, "You have a great passion for standing up for people and being an advocate, and you should really think about that." And I said, "I've never met a lawyer in my life. I don't even know what that means." But as usual, when people support you and believe in you, you kind of tend to follow that lead a little bit.
So how did you decide to go to NYU?
They gave me a wonderful opportunity through the Root Tilden Scholarship Program for folks who were interested in public interest law. And it was, after the first year, it was a full scholarship, and it was opportunities to be with, people who were like-minded, and the school was just very supportive. So.
And then you have a clerkship.
Then I had a clerkship with the Honorable Whitman Knapp, former head of the Knapp Commission on Police Corruption, and he was an incredible mentor to me. He was my first. I graduated law school in 1984, so I was almost 30 years old, and clerking for Judge Knapp was the first time that I actually had a glimpse of my future as a professional, and kind of started understanding what it would be, what it would feel like, and what it would mean to actually be a professional. He was just an amazing, amazing person.
Then you fortunately get a job with a law firm.
I got a job at a small healthcare law firm called Kalkinis, Archizol, and Bernstein. And I worked there for a couple of years. I then became pregnant with my son, Isaac.
And then Philip, and you moved to Michigan at that time.
Then we moved to Michigan because Philip had a teaching opportunity there. Unfortunately, while we were in Michigan, we had highs and lows. Isaac was born there. And
we have a picture of Philip and Isaac, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then Philip gets sick, and you move back here for his family because he had a brain tumor.
He had a brain tumor, and we moved back east because, the opportunities there for him obviously were not going to pan out, and he really needed a lot of care and attention. And my family, more importantly, was here, and they were absolutely fantastic.
So now you go back to work for the law firm?
I went back to work on a part-time basis, and I slowly worked my way up. Isaac was very young, and my parents were tremendous. They took care of him.
So how did you get the job with the Greater?
How I got the job with the Greater New York Hospital Association was, an example, I guess, of, you just kind of leap when your gut tells you to. I was sitting in one of the partners' offices when a call came from Greater New York Hospital Association, saying we're looking for somebody to run finance and analytics.
Correct. Finance and analytics.
Finance and analytics.
I think
I'm a lawyer.
You're a lawyer, a healthcare lawyer, but
Yeah.
not financial statements.
Right.
I don't believe that
Right.
the undergraduate program at Princeton really did that.
Right. So I said, I'm interested in that. And I went and I spoke to Ken. It's an advocacy. Ken Rasky. And I said, I'm not a CPA. I'm not an MBA finance major, but I am a really good advocate and I'm pretty good at math. And I was doing reimbursement types of things.
Now,
in my law firm.
what was the role of the Greater New York Hospital Association?
Greater New York Hospital Association is a large trade association. So they fundamentally advocate to enact policies and operations that will assist their member hospitals. So that's just the bottom line, whether it's regulatory or quality related or reimbursement related, from the high to the low. I had such a range of experiences there. It was
So
just
you joined the
incredible.
Greater in what year?
1991.
So it's 1991. It's the Greater. It's the beginning of the HMO movement, really.
Yes.
And the preferred provider organizations. It was a turbulent times.
Yes.
In healthcare, and it was also the start of the beginning of the mergers, which take place, in the healthcare. People were trying to understand healthcare. And what happens one day when you're at the Greater?
Yeah. So I had just started there, really, and the state passed a law saying Medicaid clients should have the opportunity to enroll in managed care plans. So it was the start of voluntary enrollment in Medicaid managed care. Ken came to me one day and basically said, the hospitals need one of those things. And I said, one of what things? And he said, to do Medicaid managed care. So I said, you mean like an HMO or an insurance? And he said, that's for you to figure out. So I, with a consultant and just, over the course of a year, sort of developed enough consensus to create a company called Healthfirst, which was really a concept, a prayer. The hospitals, the 10 or so founding hospitals, each capitalized it with like $50,000. We found a CEO for it, spun it off from Healthfirst, and it kind of had its own independent existence and grew and thrived. And I continued my career at Greater
At the
New
Greater.
York.
But one day there's a problem at Healthfirst, okay?
Yes.
Healthfirst gets involved because healthcare has the tendency in many ways of having a little corruption or changes that people understand, evaluate in a different case. And the person who ran Healthfirst was, I don't think he did it intentionally, but was paying compensation to the salespeople.
Yeah, and they were at best a little sloppy and got a little sideways with the regulators. So he and the number 2 person there left very, very abruptly in around November of 2007. The AG's office was conducting a major investigation. The Medicaid fraud unit was conducting a major investigation. The company was in turmoil, and the board did a search. And I was sitting in Ken Rasky's office, and the search firm came in and said, we're looking for XYZ. And Ken said to me, do you know anybody who might be interested? And I said, I'm interested.
So how did Ken take that?
He got over it. I think he was a little shocked. He was a little shocked.
So his student, okay, takes the opportunity. But you told me when you started the job, there was the office was under indictment, right?
I started the job. My first meeting, the board had kind of assured me that these sets of problems would be all resolved by the time I got there. And I said, okay, there's always a little cleanup, but okay. So before I officially started in March of 2008, I attended a meeting with the AG's office, presumably to kind of wrap things up. The board had offered to pay a fine and wrap things up. And it was important for them to know there was new leadership there, et cetera. And they said, it's great. So nice to meet you. We're thinking about criminally indicting the company. So I thought, oh, this is good. I just left the most wonderful job with the most wonderful boss and the most wonderful people. And this is interesting. Fortunately, my son had just gone off to college, which is what kind of got me to thinking about changing, you know. Over the course of the next year, I really had a very intense experience figuring out, with help, lots of help from others, how to get the company out of that problem.
Let's talk about what Healthfirst is today.
So Healthfirst today is about close to 1.4 million members in New York City and Long Island. We enroll 1 in 8 of every New York City resident. We are predominantly Medicaid and low-income Medicare Advantage plan. We offer products on the New York State of Health, Obamacare, and we just launched a small group commercial plan. It's brand new, it's a baby. We have about $9 billion in total revenue. We're top quality scores all around. Number 1 in Medicaid, you know, top quality in Medicare, and I'm very, very proud of that.
We have a picture of you and the Healthfirst team. So after that, when you're working at Healthfirst, you meet somebody who is running a small little company called the Empire Blues by the name of Mike Stocker.
Yeah.
So tell me how you meet Mike.
Mike and I had actually met when I was at the Greater New York Hospital Association, because Empire was going through the conversion and the hospitals didn't like that, and so there was a lot of... So I would see him every now and then at meetings, and he was a real personage in healthcare in New York City. Kind of lost track of him a little bit, and I guess I was at Healthfirst for a couple of years, and I saw him at the annual United Hospital Fund gala dinner, which takes place in October of every year, and I will forever be grateful to UHF because we kind of reconnected and started talking.
And then you and Mike got married a couple of years ago. We have pictures of that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your son and Mike's son, because they Isaac and
Luke.
And Luke.
Yes.
So tell me what Isaac is doing.
So Isaac is a phenomenally talented artist who is now really happy as a senior software engineer for a startup company called Intent Media. So he does all this computer stuff. It's basically an online
And he's a great artist. We have a picture of one of his...
Unbelievable artist, and he continues to contribute art to his company. You know, it's all young people, and they draw, you know, it's a very different environment. He continues to create art, and he's doing incredibly well at his job.
Is he married?
He's not married.
Okay. And Luke?
Luke is 18, and he is a freshman at UC Davis. This is Mike's youngest son. He has 2 older kids, John and Molly. And, you know, I guess I know Luke a little bit better because he was still a teenager in the house when Mike and I got
Right, and
together.
we have some pictures of the entire family.
Yeah, it's a wonderful boy.
So, you know, it's really great that Dad, you know, took the initiative to come to Michigan, and Mom, the really good situation was to go to Taiwan with Mr. Parsons to come over there, and he sponsored her. But I'm very happy to have the CEO of Healthfirst, Pat Wang. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Michael.